Hey everybody, it's Sherri Tutkus.
And Dale Buckman.
And Jody Chapin.
And Happy New Year! This is going to be such an exciting year for everybody. We are so excited.
We have a lot of things coming up.
A lot of things coming up.
I can't wait.
Yep. So today, this is a show dedicated to all of you, to all of our viewers, to all of our guests, to all of the people that have come onto the show that have helped us to get the message across to you about cannabis. You know, teaching people how to use cannabis in a way that is safe, responsible, and for the utmost medicinal benefit.
Right. And we've had a lot of incredible guests on the show.
Yeah, we have. And so what we've created is we've created a video montage of from July until December of all the shows that we've done. And we're going to have bits and pieces, little clips in this next hour of all of you that have come on to help us to get the message across. And we're very excited. And before we start that video, we're going to plug ourselves.
Always got to plug.
It's a new year. Jody, Happy New Year.
Thank you, Sherri.
How does it feel to be a green nurse in 2019?
Can I tell you, my life has changed so much since meeting you guys. This has been an incredible journey, and I cannot wait to see the ride that we're going on for 2019. This is going to be an incredible year.
And 2018 was an incredible year. We got to celebrate Dr. Dale Buckman.
Dr. Dale.
Right? And just
seems like old news now.
I know. It's just amazing. So green nurse. We're green nurses, and we want more green nurses.
Yes.
We want people to learn how to live their best life using cannabis as a tool and to educate on everything else that's out there for optimal health and wellness.
Yeah. Absolutely necessary.
You know, greennurse.com is our new site that's being launched. We're going to have a repository of research, information, files, videos, information that you need so you can learn how to take care of yourself. It's going to educate and empower you to make the best decisions so you can live your best life.
And we do the best we can to balance out CBD, which is not intoxicating, and THC, which is intoxicating, so that you can choose whatever is best for you.
Yeah, and the part that's great too, the other thing with greennurse.com is all the substantiation files we're going to have, you know, with research and the drug nutrient depletion, because what we find when we're taking care of all these patients is we look at all the pharmaceuticals that we're on. And sometimes what happens is these patients will be on pharmaceuticals and they'll start taking cannabis and they're wondering why they're not getting the effect that they should be getting. So I look at those pharmaceuticals and I'm at the computer, oh my God, you're on this, this, and this, and all of these nutrients are being depleted, and if you're not eating that food, the cannabis isn't going to work as well.
No, your body's not working properly at that cellular level. I mean, you need it to really be working well.
So we're going to do our best this year to bring you other options. Supplements. We'll talk about supplements. We'll talk about foods that can replenish those nutrients so that you can live your best life.
Yeah.
That's what it's about, living your best life.
That's what it's about. So Green Nurse on the go. We're gonna be hitting the road.
Oh, let's hit the road,
hitting
Jack.
The road. Put the pedal to the metal.
Can we hit the road to Florida first? Because it's much longer.
It's all right. We can drive that cannabis down to Florida.
We're all gonna get on the bus.
Get on the cannabis.
Get on the cannabis in this new year. We want you to come along with us. So please reach out to us. Send us a message on Facebook. Send us an email, info@greennursegroup.com. And basically, you will send us information that you want to get out there. Your story could save someone else's life. And so we're very, very excited right now to share with you all the stories of 2018. Recap. So remember, everybody, it's about living your best life. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Green Nurse Show.
My name is Sherri Tutkus, and I'm a registered nurse. And we have here
Dale Buckman, I'm a board-certified nurse practitioner.
there were specific people in my life that I really felt the need to tell because I know of how much it's going to help. And having to work through my own stigma has just been an incredible process. I really feel like I'm free. And the freedom comes in really being who I am and knowing that I am doing everything possible to take the best care of myself so I can live a quality life. And part of, and I'll get back to a little bit of my story, is the fear of all of these medications that I was on that I ended up coming off of because of cannabis, because it wasn't working, the other medicines. My fear was telling me, my doctor, that she would take everything away. And then the other fear of it was, well, what if I didn't have my cannabis to manage those symptoms? Then I'm really frigged up, right? So it's a catch-22, but I'm here to tell you that there is a way to work through it, and we're going to share with you all kinds of stories as to what patients have experienced and how we're trying to move through and decrease stigma for the community as we start to educate and get out there. You know what? I kind of want to introduce you.
Yes.
I can't blow you off. Look at this beautiful girl from Reliable Bud.
Yes,
Rhiannon
thank you
Snyder.
so much. I
Welcome
appreciate
to-
you guys for inviting me here.
You
This
have
is wonderful.
some incredible stories.
You
So
know,
much to share.
We do. We really do have a lot going on. First of all, my name is Rhiannon Snyder. I'm the Director of Operations for Reliable Bud. Reliable Bud is an application. I'm going to start with the application first because really we are an IT company. We've created a platform for people to use and people to put their products, their medicine up and out there for people to actually rate and review and see the products there. They can talk about their products. They can reach and network with people to actually get the medicine to who's looking for that medicine. So this application makes it possible for that network, that connection to happen.
Just and this is a glass of water.
This is a glass of water.
We're back on? Oh, we're back on.
And what you don't see when you get off the plane is basically, I mean, it's the little things that stand out. I mean, it did to me anyway. Like the bomb shelter that's right next to your living situation that's been made out of concrete that you have to walk past every day to get food. The flight line right behind where you're living that is the only trauma center for the entire region, whether it be military, enemy, civilian, any casualty at all would be flown to that right there. I mean, you see the fanfare when they go and you see the fanfare when you get back, but there's no fanfare while you're there. And to be able to describe it is pretty hard for me to put into words, really. It's
Of communities of
There are.
veterans, and there's even ones that are just women veterans if you're,
Yes.
not as comfortable with, mixing.
Yeah, and if there's any
So
other
much out
veterans
there.
that want to tell their story,
Yes.
we're looking for people to share their story because you never know if this story could save your life or a loved one's life, right?
Just one person.
Or a person that haven't even met yet that's watching.
Yeah.
Like we'll have tonight a lot of people watching, and we really appreciate the courage that it takes to come on and share.
Thank you. I appreciate you guys having me.
Yeah, healing. It's healing all around. And we now have smile.amazon.com. So if you all go to Amazon and you go shopping, what you can do is you can pick our charity, Green Nurse Group Charity,
yeah.
and a portion of the proceeds from smile.amazon.com will go to our underserved patient population, such as the veterans, as the children that we service, hospice patients, to bring them care and affordable medicine.
It doesn't cost you anything at all.
Just go shopping.
Yep, just shop as you would any other day. And
Shop till you
smile.
Cdk L5, which is a type of epilepsy. And Jody's going to share her story of how she worked through the system and how she got to use cannabis and other tools to help her son and increase his quality of life.
So, Jody,
We
tell
wanna-
us.
We want to hear about what is CDK
L5.
L5.
So CDK Alpha L5 is a gene that creates a protein for the brain to develop normally. And it's normally passed through the female, through the X chromosome. But Joseph has a very different form of it. His happened a couple hours after conception. Yes. When his DNA chain was being written, 2 of his letters switched. And it didn't happen to all of his genes, only some. So he has a mosaic form of it. So
when people, okay, so just so I'm going to interrupt. People, mosaic form.
A mosaic form
what does that
meaning
mean?
not all of his genes are affected, only
Okay.
some. We don't know to what extent, but so not all of them are affected. So it tends to be that the boys are affected a lot worse with CDKL5. It literally affects every aspect of their being, from living, breathing, eating, drinking. Normally it starts with very early onset seizures.
And is that the case with
Joseph started seizing at 3 months old, September 11th, 2012. I'll never forget the day. And he had a tiny tremor in his right forearm. And we rushed him into Tufts, and they did some tests, and they were able to see that he did have some seizure activity going on, even though they weren't able to catch an actual seizure. So they put him on Keppra, and that was the first medication. And then they sent us home. And our next appointment was with the neurologist within, I think it was a couple of days after that. And they wanted to put him on the ACTH.
And what is that?
It's a shot. It's a steroid shot. It's a series of, I believe it was 2 weeks, I want to say. You have so much to say, too. You say, hi, everybody. Hi, everybody.
Shows your son laughing for the first time.
Ever.
And how old was he at
Ever.
that time?
What are some of the other support groups for parents that are interested? I know there's Parents for Pot is one of them.
Parents for Pot is amazing.
Parents for Pot.
It also helps with families whose parents are in jail and incarcerated for treating their children with cannabis. I mean, it's amazing, some of these stories that are out there that you hear. But there are it depends what oils that you use, but the oils that we've used, there's support groups through them as well.
Joseph Journey.
Joseph
Joseph has his own page.
Yes, his
How
own.
could I
Tell us
forget?
about that.
Joseph's Journey on Facebook. Amazing stories there. Progression, videos, smiles, milestones.
You can see literally the pictures, the before, the after. It's just amazing.
Well, after I saw a child from Maine that had a seizure, and it was stopped with the CBD. And I had someone call DCF on me because they thought when I was getting really high into the I was getting really into
advocacy.
into the advocacy in Florida. There was the whole vote, yes on 2, and so I put a picture of my daughter and I said, this doesn't always, look like, what you think it's going to look like, a patient. And
It mimics 360 other different diseases, so it's really hard to diagnose.
And not even to mention the biofilm, which is like
The
this
biofilm.
sludge that's covering the outside of it. It acts as a protective layer, which is why traditional antibiotic routines don't always work for every patient.
So let's just explain. So the biofilm is a coating that is around the bacteria.
Cannabis as a whole plant is antifungal, antibacterial, anti-carcinogenic. There's a lot of really great properties about it that just makes it a really great substance for you to ingest in general.
To help people. You're not only learning to bridge the gap from traditional to holistic using cannabis as a tool, but we also want to bridge the medical to the community. And I'm talking about the caring healers in the cannabis community. Because part of my story as to how I got better was getting out there. And I was afraid to get out there. I had so much anxiety, which you would not believe. You wouldn't believe this. I was agoraphobic, panic disorder, social anxiety disorder. You would never know it. Now.
Yeah.
But what it took me was if I would go into these communities, I'd be like, oh, they're not going to care. They're all high anyways. But you know what? That wasn't the truth. They care. And part of my healing I want people to understand that this community, they're healers. They are, and they make a difference, and they made a difference in my life. And I can't believe I'm going to cry.
So he was hospitalized several times, and once for constipation, which is a side effect of the pain meds he was on. after that hospitalization, I said to his doctor, is there nothing else we can do for him to manage his pain? And I said, what about medical marijuana? Now, mind you, I really didn't know anything about it. I just threw it out there. And the doctor looked at me and he said, I think that's a great idea. And I thought, whoa, all right, I guess I have something to learn. So I did my research. I took Dad to a dispensary, got him certified, and drove him to the dispensary. And he was in a lot of pain, never complained, but on the way home, we got home, had lunch with Mom. He took a couple of vapes, puffs on his vape pen, and he stood up and he said, wow. And I said, are you okay? Are you dizzy? He said, I'm not in pain. And I thought, are you kidding me? So that day I decided I would change my career. And I went back to school. I went to the Holistic Cannabis Academy. It's an online school. And I did my training and took an exam and became a certified holistic cannabis practitioner.
And can we please have a round of applause for my Cindy Brady?
I promise I won't freeze up this time.
Oh, sweetheart. Can I tell you what an amazing journey? Since the time I've met and the more I've learned about you and what you've gone through, and just to see the pictures and the transformation and how you take care of yourself and now why you're a green nurse. This is something that the world needs to know about. It's your time to shine.
That's my
So
time.
tell us, where did this journey begin?
This journey began. I've been a nurse for almost 3 decades, 30 years. And the first time I heard about the endocannabinoid system was just 2 years ago, first time. I knew it as a medication. I started looking at it, as a medicine back when my good friend was sick. We kind of dabbled in it. It was illegal here. Kind of dropped it after she had passed away. And, it wasn't until I started hearing things that, it's better than just the, the cancers and the Alzheimer's and the seizures, So I started educating myself. And, I played around with it, trying to see, okay, well, I don't need to become a patient. I can just try, with what I get. But you know what? It took becoming a patient to realize that you don't have to get high.
Right.
To feel, to get the benefits, to feel better.
Tonight's show is really about living your best life, a high quality life with chronic illness.
So what were you thinking?
I was scared. I was in denial. No, that's ridiculous,
Yeah, how could that happen to me?
Yeah, and so I basically didn't do anything for a couple of months, and then I realized that the doctor I'd seen really didn't strike me as adequate for the task. I went to Dana-Farber. I'm allowed to mention.
Yeah.
Oh, sure.
So I went to Dana-Farber, just walked in and said, can I have a second opinion? And they kept me alive. They later told me that it was the variety of prostate cancer that kills quickly, and they wouldn't have been surprised if it only lasted a year.
Hey, everybody, we're back.
We're back. And we're back here with Angela.
It was the best thing that ever happened to me, meeting you guys that night, because I've learned so much from you already.
Really?
I don't want to get emotional.
Oh, honey, this is so good. Listen, we're on a journey.
Yeah.
Right?
It's been a great journey.
Isn't it? Oh, you're going to make me cry.
We need some tissues over here.
Today's show, we are going to be honoring our veterans. We're here with Ellen Brown. She's a United States Air Force veteran. She's an international speaker, and she's founder of Sensimilla Seminars. Yes. And we were talking. You've been here for a little while. We've been hanging out. We've been chatting, and I was telling you that my daughter, she's going to school tomorrow. I'm bringing her to the University of Maine, and she's going to be doing Navy ROTC. And it was, what about when you were a young girl? What was that like when you decided?
Well, I didn't find my calling until about the same time. It was senior year in high school, and I started thinking, what next? And one of my best friends, Tommy Charlton, the year prior, had actually joined the United States Marine Corps. So I was trying to make my decisions. Who do you talk to but your best friends? And Tommy was like, I think you would do great in the Air Force. You go to the Air Force, figure out what you want to do, and then go from there. So I actually, because he was my best friend, it's sage information. It's a very trusted source. We're losing 22 veterans a day to being overprescribed, and if they're over the age of 21, they should be able to use their cognitive liberties if they choose to do so.
Oh, I like that.
And use cannabis.
Cognitive liberties.
Yes, that's one of my favorite terms because I am an adult.
Because you're all grown up now.
I am an adult. I'm also a medical marijuana user and a recreational user, and I feel as though those two things can run parallel, even if they're practiced by the same.
So all the different angles of what could possibly happen.
Yes. So then we come out, and then we're looked at as weird because of it. But we have these different skills that are not being utilized. So when we come back, we have all these skills that are not considered dormant because we can't use them.
Right.
And then not only that, we're out of this base where we have complete and utter feeling of tranquility because you have others who have the same feeling you have, who you know that in a drop of a hat would go and fight for you. And then you get out of that family, that culture, and you're put into a culture like now, out of the civilian world, and it's hard because now you're looking behind you all the time because you don't have that other guy next to you who you can basically look at and be like, yeah, you have that side, I have this side. Even if joking around or going to the base, you didn't have to worry about that. Now you're out of there and you're completely out, and it's a whole culture shock. I used to be a counselor, a mental health counselor when it came to in a substance abuse place, and actually that where I first started, that seed was also kind of growing because of it, because a lot of these people were in these rooms on Suboxone to overcome their medication or methadone and how can they grasp these concepts of dialectical behavioral therapy and mindfulness?
They can't
if they're not fully there.
I'm going to grab your hands again and look at you in the eyes and say thank you for being here. This is really hard for me too, but I commend you on coming here to share your story. Because at 3.5 years old, what happens on Christmas Eve?
She wound up having a seizure and fell over backwards, and we brought her to the emergency room, and the doctors told us that she was fine. It was probably febrile, and sent her home, and she was in the truck, and my ex-husband brought her back, and she had another seizure because she passed out in the bank. And then, by the time he brought her back to the hospital, it was in 10 minutes. She had a 5-minute generalized full-body seizure, and then they gave her diazepam, and then they bused her to UMass. And then they didn't know what was wrong with her, and we spent the whole entire Christmas weekend at the hospital, and they sent her home. It was like a one-time deal. They gave her basic seizure medications, basic benzos, and she kept having drug interactions with the medications, and we started her off on low dose of Topamax to get the small seizures under control. So,
But they still didn't have a diagnosis, correct?
No.
We want to start off with our first guest because she's really taken the time out of her day to call in and to be with us. Her name is Sue Carroll. She's a nun. She's a chemistry teacher for over 32 years. She's retired. She has her PhD from Boston College. She has a very serious condition called complex regional pain syndrome. And she's going to share with us how cannabis is helping her live her best life. So Sue, you on the line?
Yes, I am.
Thanks for calling in, Sue. We really appreciate it.
Oh, I'm very happy. I'm
very
hoping
excited.
if I could help one person as much as you have helped me, I'll be grateful.
Oh. So, Sue, you are the least likely person ever,
besides
besides me, that would use cannabis.
I think that's true.
Yeah. So let's talk about that.
I'm just going to make a little joke. What would Jesus say?
He would say, go ahead. If this is something that helps, this is something that I created, so go ahead and use it.
There you go. I think a lot of people would agree with you, Sue. Yeah. A lot of people.
But unfortunately, a lot of people disagree with me, too. So those are the ones I'm trying to encourage to agree with us on this.
Yeah. So you have quite a story. And, basically, there's a lot to cover. So why don't we just start with what is complex regional pain syndrome? And we'll kind of start from there. People need to understand that you've been suffering and how bad it's been.
So tell us about that. What was it like to have
when you got that diagnosis and what you've done and what led you to cannabis.
All right. When I first got the diagnosis, I had it in my right arm because I had fallen, and instead of letting myself go, I grabbed the mantle, so my arm rotated, and I broke my arm, dislocated my shoulder, did a great deal of damage to the nerve junction. And then when that healed, for some reason, I had these other very, very strange symptoms. And fortunately, I was going to a rheumatologist who very quickly recognized it as complex regional pain syndrome.
And then
So
we
I was
started your
absolutely-
cannabis journey. Then we started cannabis. And what has
Thank
happened?
goodness we did.
So we did the
I can't-
consultation, right? And I started teaching you, and we started working together.
Mhm.
And what happened?
I cannot even, I would never have believed that this was possible, the change that has occurred. And I will give you an example. This past weekend, one of my nieces was married in Pittsfield, and she's a favorite niece of mine. I shouldn't say that, but she is, and she knows it. And I was desperate to go to her wedding, and I never thought this would happen. I actually, not only did I go to her wedding, I was still there at 9 o'clock at night, and the first time in probably 20 years, I actually danced with my husband.
Oh my God, you're gonna make me cry. I cry every show. There it is.
That's what it's all about.
How do we meet?
Oh, how do we meet? I think you
stalked you.
stalked me.
You did. Facebook
But it was
stalker.
great. It was the best stalker ever.
Can I tell you, it was like the stories. I was like, oh my God, I've never heard of anything as incredible as your story.
We lived it, and we still can't believe it because we're sitting here.
So I
This
need
is not what we do for a living, but I guess now we are advocates, and this is how you do it. You get people access to heal themselves.
Yeah, and so just for the audience, this is just the miracle of what is going on here and what has happened over the past couple of years, and he's going to get into the story. But this is a man that has stage 3 MS, who eradicated all cancer cells in his body using full extract cannabis oil.
It
'Cause
doesn't.
no one-
It don't register right away. You know, really, I'm going to die in 2 months. It's my birthday. I'm 50 years old, and you're telling me I got to go upstairs in the hospital and they're going to do open heart surgery because of, you know, it's just almost unexplainable. We still can't get grips with it, except for that we know I'm existing now on a daily survival because I don't know what's going to happen with me, even though I do have really healthy days and some good and bad ones. But
I mean,
all in
he's
all,
the
I'm not-
only known survivor, so even
There's
if
no
the
other
doctors-
man that is walking
We're
this
looking,
earth
and we haven't
that
found it, and
has
we are
baby
asking
powder.
everyone in every medical side of the world we could find. Even in our visits, everywhere we go where we're not the patients, we still talk to the doctor, say, have you ever heard of this? And my own surgeon who did it to me, he knows because that's what he does. 30 years working on hearts. He has never had to do this to somebody.
Right.
Let alone have somebody they knows can't survive it because the pharmacopoeia books in the day had this treatment in there as a last resort to save life.
You guys, you inspire me and help me to want to do more. And
You just
thank
keep doing
you.
what you're doing because you doing what you're doing is actually saving so many lives. We love you.
Oh, sweetheart. Angels and nurses.
We love
unite.
you.
All right,
Yay.
you guys. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. And Mike, you know, welcome to the show.
Well, guys, thank you very much. I really appreciate the opportunity to come here and tell people about my platform. Obviously, I've been involved in the cannabis industry for a very long time. You know, we were talking a little bit earlier about how marijuana is currently recreational. Prior to that, it was medical. Well, not everyone knows that before it was medical, it was actually decriminalized via Article 12. That was in late 2011, early 2012.
And you participated in that, correct?
Yeah, well, I've been really involved. I was a criminal defense attorney at that point for a few years already. And so as I was a younger, less experienced attorney and actually seeing the evolvement and the change in the laws, and not only the change in the laws, but the change in how they're actually enforced and how they're interpreted over the past few years, it's been incredibly exciting. And again, from my vantage point, having already practiced criminal defense practicing criminal law as a defense attorney for a few years, I was really well positioned to see, like, you know, this one change in the law and how it has ripple effects that affect individuals across the state. I've been really fortunate in that capacity to help out individuals, help out patients. You know, as a defense attorney, guys, I'm running for district attorney, but as a defense attorney, I can tell you that I've dealt with more addicts than I can possibly count. So many people that have been dealing with heroin addictions or addictions to opiates. And I've encountered client after client after client after friend, etc., who have used medical cannabis in conjunction under the supervision of a medical professional, but used it as an exit drug. And I realize it's still stigmatized to this day.
Yeah.
But I can tell you as a defense attorney, that's certainly not something I subscribe to. And as district attorney under my administration, that certainly will no longer be the case. I fully recognize the medical benefit.
About 15, when I started having issues with my kidneys, at first it was just like hand and feet swelling and face swelling. And then I started feeling really crappy and got blood tests done and came back. It was my kidneys. And between the ages of 15 and 19, my kidney function went down to 8%.
So what was the cause of that, though?
They're really honestly not sure what kicked off the particular condition that I have, which was membranous glomerulonephritis.
Membranous
glomerulonephritis. So
this could happen to anyone.
Yes. It's just one of those things that I ended up with. And thankfully, there's technology, so dialysis is possible to keep me alive, because 8% of your kidneys isn't really enough to keep you alive.
But anyone that's gone through or knows somebody that's gone through dialysis knows that it really interferes with your life. So how many days a week?
I have to go to a clinic 3 days a week. My treatments are 4 hours at a time. The treatments include getting cannulated with 15 gauge needles, which
They're
are pretty big.
Very big, very large.
It's a standard piercing needle. It's 1 gauge up from a standard piercing needle. And that's if they get it right. Yeah. And that's basically what it does to your arm. It kind of makes bumps and lumps where they stick you over and over.
And how does it leave you feeling at the end of the day?
Pretty wiped out. I usually go home and go to bed for a few hours, if not the rest of the day. And depending upon how it goes, some days I'm wiped out the next day. So it's hard to plan any kind of anything, because you never know how you're going to feel.
Right.
So when you were diagnosed with this condition, how long after did you start dialysis?
From my initial diagnosis of, hey, you have something wrong with your kidneys, to, hi, you're on dialysis, was about 3.5 years.
And we have been talking a lot about the medical program. Currently, what's going to be happening is the Department of Public Health is going to be passing over to the CCC, the Medical Cannabis Program.
Cannabis Control Commission.
Yep. Medical marijuana saved my life. Medical marijuana, medical cannabis is what I choose to call it, is the reason why I'm sitting here today, right? If it wasn't for the program,
my God,
I'm gonna cry already. We haven't even started. It's been 1 minute.
So medical marijuana is very important to me personally because of family the issues, with health. I had an aunt that passed away a few years ago of lung cancer, and she used medical marijuana when she was in hospice. My mother would actually help, take her out of the hospital and help her use cannabis in the last days. And I also have an autistic brother, an older brother who has seizures and Crohn's and a lot of other issues. And I've seen him taking medications that made him more sick. That were prescription. And, so seeing family members pass away, that I wish I could have somehow introduced this medicine to them and when the program wasn't, where it is today.
I'm Rick Naya. I'm New Hampshire's primary cannabis activist. I'm elected so by the citizens, not so much so that I say it, but that's a good way to explain what I do. I stand on behalf of the ordinary citizen and farmers and peoples who've had their rights, what I believe, abused throughout the last, several, 50, 60, 70 years and throughout the cannabis world. But New Hampshire is a second home to me. I'm from Palm Beach, Florida. I'm a born native of Florida. And I moved here about 25 years ago to New Hampshire. And when I got here, I came to live the normal dream, to get married, have a family, and raise one, and do it all, just, do it well. And I did so. And there just came a day that...
Cannabis fell out of the sky.
Yeah, well, that happened.
That's a story.
A non-addictive medicine.
could provide the same benefits that a bunch of dangerous drugs currently provide.
Yeah.
But in any case, and a friend of mine was already in the business, and he said, you know, geez, John, why don't you consider joining us and getting into this? And I did. And I just so enjoyed working with the folks, with the patients, the many patients that I saw and certified. And October?
Yeah, it was around October of 2015,
Yeah,
I think,
yeah.
around that time, because at that time, John started bringing me in to work with him, just so I could learn, because as a nurse, it was fascinating to me, and I, at the time, had been going through my own severe chronic illness, and I just missed being around patients and being around people, and to see all these patients coming in and how their lives had changed, like when you would see them in the beginning when they would come in as a patient and then maybe come back with a recertification, the transformation was unbelievable.
Yeah.
Like that's what got us really passionate about it, is when we actually physically would talk with patients and see what their lives were.
We had cognitive dissonance going on here.
Yeah, I mean, what the Mass Board said was that I, being the medical director of the company, was designating the nurse practitioners to certify patients, but that was not the case. And I certified some 5,500 folks in Massachusetts. I was like,
oh my God, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
He certified the most at that time, and this is where it all started.
But it wasn't all my certifications.
Right. It was the team.
It was
the team.
Yeah.
You know, the various nurse practitioners would certify patients on my credentials.
Right.
And what that ultimately resulted in was a summary suspension of my medical license.
Dr. Tischler, welcome.
Thank you so much.
Thank you guys for having me. It's
You
a
know,
pleasure to be here.
It's everyone has a story, and basically, you went to Harvard.
It's true.
You went to Harvard Medical School.
That is also true.
Practicing physician, Brigham and Women's Hospital, emergency room. What is your why cannabis?
Well, you know, it's all true. And so I come from sort of a very traditional background, right? You know, Harvard this and Harvard that. And
Preparation H.
Preparation H, exactly. And so, you know, I spent about 15 years being an emergency room physician for the VA in West Roxbury. And when you do that, you see a lot of veterans who've really been harmed by drugs and alcohol. And let me just point out, alcohol far and away above even number 2. But obviously opiates and other medications as well. You sort of become kind of an expert in the trial by fire of how these things present and how you take care of people like that.
Right.
Somewhere around 2011, when Massachusetts started to entertain the idea of cannabis as medicine, I started thinking, you know, I've never seen anybody sick from cannabis. You would see patients come in and they might have cannabis use disorder on their problem list, but never saw anybody sick. You know, sort of like, okay, maybe cannabis use disorder exists, maybe not, I don't know.
That's another whole subject.
Well, that
right?
we can come back to that,
Yeah.
absolutely. I'm actually much more convinced that I do know now, and I think it does exist, but one has to be thoughtful about how you make that diagnosis, and
Right.
oftentimes we're not. But it was through this process of going, well, if this is medicine, and I'm not seeing anyone sick from it, maybe we should be taking this seriously. And that sort of prompted my own drive to learn about it. So it took a couple of years to really read deep into the literature. And anybody who tells you that the literature doesn't exist, that we just need more studies, isn't paying attention.
So now that we just plugged ourselves, we'll get back to the show. So, I know, huh?
You're so cute.
I can't help it. You developed cannabis hyperemesis syndrome. How long and when did you start using cannabis?
I probably started when I was about 13 years old.
And how old are you now?
38.
Okay.
And when did you develop?
It's tough to say specifically. When I think about when I started to have, stomach pains and things that seemed like they came out of nowhere, I'd say somewhere in about 10 or 12 years ago, in that range.
Wow. Okay. And how much cannabis were you using?
At that point, when they started to emerge, I would say it was borderline habitual. I mean, it was in the morning, throughout the day, into the evening, at night, like most people would enjoy, beer or a glass of wine. That was always the mainstay for me.
Was it multiple different methods of administration or just one way?
I tended to be, at that time, it was more of smoking flower itself, but we'd incorporate edibles, and as vapes came out and stuff like that, that was something I definitely gravitated towards, as did most people. But yeah, there really wasn't much I was opposed to at the time.
Right. And so what happened when you first got sick?
The first vomiting episode, I got admitted to the hospital, and no one could give me any answers, and it was actually from Logan via ambulance, and we basically sat there, and no one could give me answers, and
so they're doing a
they offered a bunch
clinical,
of tests.
Yeah, I was going to say they're doing a complete clinical workup.
Yep.
And did they have any thoughts on what it could be?
They gave me fluids. They gave me, if I remember, it was Zofran, and they wanted to hold me there, and they wanted to run all these full spectrum of tests. And at the time, something in my gut told me I didn't need to, and I checked myself out and drove home.
I'm super blessed to be here, and we're lucky to have folks like you kind of spreading the message. Really trying to tie in all the wonderful, benefits of living your best life and what kind of tools we have available to us,
So,
as opposed to, pharmaceuticals
right.
and other.
So one of the things that I think a lot of folks don't understand is that inflammation in the body is the root of all disease and pain. If you have pain, you have inflammation, and patients will say, but look, I have no inflammation. Right. But the inflammation is there, it's present. We have research that shows that depression is also related to inflammation. So everything comes back to
what you eat. Yeah,
right?
what we eat. And it's, again, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a nutritionist, I am, N=1. I do it myself.
You're a power of example.
And I do, I try to lead by example and try and help my family, my friends, obviously my children, trying to impress upon them that, the foundation of, just knowledge and information, so that they can build their own structure, but they need a foundation. Everybody needs a foundation, of where to start. And the foundation that we've been taught is wrong. We've unfortunately been deceived, tricked, if you're a conspiracy theorist, that, that the government's out to get you, or whatever it is.
But it's all based on money, right?
It is. There's a lot of it, again,
so
that it goes very deep
so deep.
Very
from
powerful.
Government and, subsidies and grain
and
subsidies and corn
think about
subsidies.
Even prolonging shelf life of food.
Shelf life
what
of
they
food.
did, because it's about the money, and B, they want to keep it on the shelves longer, lower the
cost.
cost.
And all these things that we're putting in our food are poisoning us.
The 3 Fs.
Not
fake food, fried food, fast food.
Right, all of it. I mean, anything that's not grown out of the earth or, running or swimming is processed food. And really, humans, human beings, the animals of human beings are not supposed to eat things that aren't really from the earth, right?
Yeah, well, so we both met in the restaurant industry, and immediately clicked over our love of food and also cannabis. So as soon as we found out it was going legal, Joe called me one day. It was his idea. He called up, and I immediately loved the idea because I am a big fan of both food and cannabis. So combining the two just seemed like the most natural way to go for us.
Yeah. Yeah, it kind of just made sense to do it that way.
Food's always been a communal thing, able to bring people together. You know, no one can argue over good food. It's just good, and adding cannabis in with that helps.
So where do you do private catering in people's homes?
What services do you offer?
So we offer pop-up. We do 2 pop-up events every month at private residences that are open to the public that you can come and join us at. Where we also offer private catering events where we could do birthday parties, weddings, etc. Any kind of privately catered event that you would normally have, we can accommodate.
Economic empowerment in the city of Boston. They understood that there were different towns in Boston, so your Dorchester, Roxbury, Mattapan, that there are these towns in Boston that have been disproportionately affected by drugs in general, but specifically cannabis. And so people have been, killed, arrested. There's been a lot of things going on. You have raids. And so they felt as though, well, if they give people in these communities the opportunity to kind of set themselves apart, then they would get a faster foot in the door. So once you are certified economic empowerment, that pretty much means that your application always stays at the top of the pile.
Right. So your application, you guys were approved.
Yes, we were approved. We are
so your
certified.
application is at the top of the pile.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's what they tell us.
That's what
That's what it's supposed to mean.
Okay.
So you do have to live in an area that was affected by cannabis.
You have to live in that area now?
Yes, and have to have lived in it, I believe, 5 years. 5 years. The last 5 years. You or someone in your immediate family should have a drug felony charge. That's also a requirement. And that was it, right?
And a person of color?
Yes.
It was really for minorities.
A person of color, and it's supposed to be more than
Just kidding.
exactly melanation. Melanated color.
I got extremely sick and I almost died, and it started me on the trajectory of multiple pharmaceuticals, one side effect after another, one complication after another, one medical problem after another.
Oh, so true.
And it just kept accumulating, and I was getting sicker and sicker and sicker, and nothing was working.
So sad to see and hear, and 'cause you want the best for your children, and to see my daughter
going from high functioning to not functioning at all,
crawling on the ground to go to the bathroom from her
Right.
bed. Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty. So you didn't know you had herniated discs?
I didn't at the time, no. And I was told that because there was no, there was no fall, there was no actual, accident or something like that, that, it was just a muscle pull or a strain or something like that. And they put me on opiates immediately. And for the next year, I was told to just keep taking the medication and it would get better. And I was refused MRIs, I was refused x-rays.
Just take some opiates, here you go home, and good luck to you.
Yep.
And so even now that I'm healed, that's like, it's the mental, emotional, spiritual component, right? Physically, I'm feeling great, but now it's time for me to get into a better space and a relationship with food so I can enjoy being in the kitchen with the music and chopping and, right?
It's amazing. It's amazing.
Mom made me fill my prescription, brought it home, and she made me take one single pill to ward off when the anesthesia was wearing off. And then the person I was working for at the time, he used to make all sorts of, cannabis chocolates and cannabis gummies and things like that. Well, he brought me over a bag of cannabis chocolates. So every 4 to 6 hours, in place of when I would have been taking a Percocet and a gabapentin simultaneously, I started eating the chocolates. He figured they were probably about 25 milligrams. And I didn't even need to eat a whole one. At night I would, because I know throughout the night things are wearing off. You're not waking up every 4 to 6 hours to take medicine. So I'd eat a whole one at night. But throughout the day, laying on the couch doing absolutely nothing, I would just eat half a chocolate every 4 to 6 hours and never had to take an opiate.
Cannabis patient. He's a deaf man who's also an activist and an advocate for the deaf community. Language, as we know, is the great connector to people. We have expressive language, which is how we express ourselves to people. And then we have receptive language as to how we receive information and how we process that to make decisions in our lives.
So spending 4 years at that college, I was around a lot of different people, and I saw that how cannabis could affect people's mental health for the better. And I also have ADHD, and I'm very active and hyperactive. I can't really sit still for very long or ever really relax. So one of my friends had said, well, why don't you try this? try smoking a little weed and see how it works. And so I tried that, and afterwards I fell in love with it because it really helped me out a lot.
Well, fantastic. Thank
All
you
right.
so much, Dale.
And thank you everybody for coming.
That was
and I
an
appreciate
amazing
it.
presentation.
Oh, thank you.
Yes, and I'd like to congratulate the future Dr. Buckman, who upon completion of all didactic and clinical requirements of Frontier Nursing University's Doctor of Nursing Practice program, will have demonstrated mastery of the DNP essentials as defined by the American Association of Colleges of Nursing. Great job, Dale.
Thank you, Anna.
We can all continue to celebrate.
Thank
And
you.
Thank you, everyone, for coming.
And thank you all for coming. I appreciate it.
Really excellent. Thank you.
Look at me. Oh, my girl.
Right, I'm always, I always
Not a suppository.
No. We don't want anyone sticking the information up their bums. As you said, migraines are to Beverly as kryptonite is to Supergirl.
That was great.
Yeah.
Okay, it brings you to your knees.
It does. Yeah, I can't.
And you've
do
had them
anything.
since you were 15.
I have. They came with the onset of puberty, as they can often do, and stuck around and just got worse and worse and worse over time, more and more intense. I mean, stress is a big trigger for migraines, and that's a really, really stressful time in anybody's life. You're dealing with changes at school, changes in social situation, trying to decide on what colleges you're going to go to. You're also dealing with hormonal.
And that's what we're going to talk about in a little bit.
Yes,
Hormonal shifts. Oh my God.
It's huge. And my doctors did what they could at the time, and that was to put me on a bunch of medications.
You were on a lot of them.
I was on a lot, yeah.
You tried a lot of different ones.
They were quite severe and often enough that they put me on a cocktail with like 5 different medications and played around with the doses, made me very, very tired. My blood pressure just plummeted. It was so low.
Don't get high. I don't use alcohol.
But she's got
right,
the
you're
best.
What do you do for fun?
She's got the best laugh. And trust me, she's not boring. Oh, my mother.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a funny
Your
story.
mother was funny.
She's funny. So my mother was, I love you, Mom.
You got to preface that with I love you.
and there's a show. There's like a 30-minute show. It's one of our shows that we videoed her in. We did a recording of her. And she shares her story. She was, same thing. She grew up anti-cannabis. It was reefer madness, and she, same thing. Trusted the doctors, believed the doctors, did what the doctors said, looked at this as an illegal drug. And then, of course, when I turned to it, I got blocked on Facebook. I got a letter that I stuck in the freezer. So I didn't have to read it right away. But it was, she didn't understand. And I had to pull back and just take care of myself and make it work and show that this is medicine. And then slowly but surely, as we started doing Green Nurse Group and the Green Nurse Radio Show, I started sending her links to the shows, and she started watching. And then before you knew it, I got the phone call that she was ready to try it. And we're gonna end with our group hug. That you all have to remember, it's about living your best life.